A tenant in Buffalo, New York, who stopped paying rent 10 months ago because she says her apartment is overrun with roaches and rats, is now worried that she's going to be evicted since the state's eviction moratorium ended. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today. Now, this is one of those situations where, they created this article basically so that they could garner sympathy for this tenant who is in this bad situation, who's facing eviction, and the evil landlord is doing everything to hurt them, right? Well, you look at it and you're like, well, this story, it doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't pass the logic test, okay? So you begin to wonder what really is going on in this situation. Now, I'm not saying that this is a good landlord. I'm not even going to say that, okay? I will say that, the grand majority of landlords, 99% of us, are good people. We do everything right. We fix the problems that need to be fixed. And all that we ask is that you pay us the money that you owe us on time, okay? But every once in a while, there are some bad landlords out there. But my question always is, what exactly, there seems to be more to a lot of these situations, especially when you read these articles and they're trying to garner this sympathy for tenants. So I really kind of, have to think about what's going on. And I'm going to tear this article apart and tell you exactly what I think really is happening, okay? Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think. Have you seen articles where, hey, they're trying to portray this tenant as, this really good person, but you read a little bit deeper into it and you're like, hey, you're really screwing this landlord over and you actually created the problems that you are complaining about. That's what I see a lot. Okay. Now I know that people who aren't landlords, when they see these articles, their landlords are evil, but this is a landlord channel and I get it out there, that, hey, we can't look at these articles, they call it fake news for a reason. Well, a lot of these stories are fake news and they're just meant to make us look bad because they want to create this tension, it's like, the haves versus the have-nots. Well, simply put, we're all in this together, okay? And all we're trying to do is get by. The majority of landlords are just regular middle-class people. They're not like these super rich oligarchs, millionaires or billionaires. They're just, owning one, maybe two properties, and they're trying to rent them out, make a little bit of extra money, and, they're getting screwed over by too much government regulation, bad tenants, and etc. And it's causing a nightmare. So let me get into this article, and it's coming from BuffaloNews.com, and it says, Buffalo family living with rats and roaches faces eviction after moratorium ends. There's something wrong right there in the title, and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, wow, this family, they have rats and roaches and now they're facing eviction. Like, wait a second. Why would these people want to stay in this place filled with rats and roaches? If this place is as awful as they describe, shouldn't they want to leave? I mean, they shouldn't have to be evicted. They should just leave on their own. But let's see what this article says about the situation. The Hardy family has been renting the downstairs of a house on Floss Avenue on Buffalo's east side for nearly 2 years. For much of that time, they say, the home has been infested with cockroaches and rats. We have rats the size of kittens, said Jasmine Hardy, standing in her living room on a recent morning with her 3 children. If we stay out here and be quiet long enough, they will come out of the kitchen. In broad daylight, added Robert Hardy, her husband. When housing activists make their case for why they feel city and state housing laws need to be strengthened, they point to tenants like the Hardy family. City health inspectors cited their landlord for the rodent infestation and fire code violations on Wednesday, but the family, who stopped paying rent 10 months ago because the landlord did not rectify the rat and roach problem, is likely to be evicted now that the state's COVID-19 pandemic eviction moratorium has expired. So, right now, we have a situation, okay? So, like I said, I'm not going to defend the landlord in this situation. I'm going to assume, at least, that, hey, this rat and roach problem is real because, they did say that the city actually cited the landlord for the issue. So that means that there probably were rats and roaches in this place, okay? But that part is understandable. This place is not in great condition. But then you look at it and they're like, well, she said they've lived there for 2 years, but they just cited them on, the past Wednesday. And I'm like, wait a second. So this place, and she said also that the place, the rat and roach problem has been a big problem since they moved in. So you've lived there for 2 years, and just now that the eviction moratorium is over, all of a sudden this is a huge issue, Why? Because your landlord can actually evict you now. So for the prior 2 years, you had no problem staying in this place infested with rats and roaches. You didn't call the city. You didn't get a newspaper article written about you. You were just like, yeah, whatever. You stopped paying rent completely 10 months ago. You haven't paid rent in 10 months. It says it right here. But then the New York State eviction moratorium ended in January. And guess what? Now your landlord can actually file for eviction. Now you're going to have to go. And suddenly this is a problem. Okay? Now I'm not saying that this place is in good shape, but here's my issue. You didn't have any problem with it until you all of a sudden would have to pay, or all of a sudden you're facing eviction. And, that's just, that's scummy, So they do have some pictures here, and definitely roaches. I hate roaches personally. I'm a good landlord, so if there is a roach issue, I will call the exterminator out there as soon as possible to hopefully take care of it. And I've had tenants who were just disgusting in some of my units before, and it doesn't matter if you spray the place, even if you send the exterminator out there. If they don't clean up their mess, if they keep on, living nasty, then the roaches will, they'll have places where they lay their eggs, and, you'll never be able to get rid of them. So it's really, it's more than just about the landlord trying to make sure that, the place is sprayed and all that. The place has to be cleaned, okay? And the tenants in there have to be clean. Give them no food source, give them nowhere to lay their eggs and hide, and then you might be able to at least get the problem taken care of. But if this landlord, let's say he was doing a good job and he was actually calling the exterminator out there, and these tenants were still messy, well, there's nothing that he can do about that until they're gone. And then once they're gone, he can clear that place out completely, fumigate it, and then all them rats and roaches will be dead. Okay, so I'm not going to lay the blame 100% on the landlord in this situation, but I'm torn on it. Okay, I'll just say I'm torn for right now, because I know that there's nothing that he could have done if these tenants were just living pretty dirty. We get calls like this all the time. It's incredibly common, Teresa Watson, housing justice organizer at the Buffalo nonprofit group People United for Sustainable Housing, said of the rats. This is a chronic issue across the city. Watson said Push Buffalo expects thousands of tenants to be evicted in the coming months now that the moratorium is over. Jasmine Hardy played a video for a reporter of one of the rats crawling on top of the family's mini fridge, nosing around in search of food. She now keeps most of the family's food in plastic storage totes. Each morning, she sweeps rat droppings out of the house before Brianna, James, and Janelle get up. I'm a germaphobe, Jasmine Hardy said. It drives me nuts. I don't eat half the time. I don't want to. It's disgusting. Well, unfortunately, they kind of put a picture of her up there. She's a little bit overweight, and so when she says she doesn't eat, I don't exactly believe that part. just joking around there, but if she's a germaphobe and she was living in this house filled with rats and roaches, and they even got a picture here and it shows like the waste, like roaches and waste product on looks like a chair, and I don't believe that she's truly a germaphobe. I don't think a true germaphobe wouldn't have been able to sit in that house for 2 years. Okay, she did. So, I'm truly doubting it. But whether she's a germaphobe or not, I do believe that, she deserves to live in a nice, clean place. But like I said, there is nothing here that says that the reason that this infestation problem is so bad is because of the landlord. Now, I'd like to hear the landlord's side of the story. Did the landlord ever actually have the exterminator come out? I mean, did they even interview the landlord? Because a lot of the times these articles just don't. So I'll keep reading. Hopefully they have something here from the landlord. The family stopped paying $750 per month to their landlord to protest the living conditions, she said. I told him, I'm not paying y'all nothing until you stop rats from coming in my house, Jasmine Hardy said. Ratna Akhtar of the Bronx owns the home, property records show. He purchased the property in 2019 for $61,000, according to property records. Akhtar said the Hardy family owes him nearly $8,000 in back rent. Well, these people should keep in mind, too, okay, that, hey, you know what we do with the rent payment? Sometimes we will pay the exterminators with the money that you pay us, okay? So the problems, if you have problems in your unit and then you're not paying us, what do you expect us to use to fix those problems? I mean, that's part of my gripe with a lot of these things where they say, oh, well, the tenant should be able to withhold the rent. Well, hey, we use the rent to fix the problems. So if you don't pay us the rent, some landlords, especially the smaller ones, they can't afford to fix these problems. Now, I mean, geez, it's a completely ridiculous kind of situation. But, they owe close to $8,000. And still, even though, let's keep in mind that they said that they stopped paying rent because of the rat issue, right? But they said that they only stopped paying 10 months ago. They moved in 2 years ago. They said that earlier in the article. So for the first 14 months, apparently, there was no problem whatsoever with all the rats and everything, and they were able to pay their rent and had no issues. So, see, this is my other gripe with the whole eviction moratorium nonsense. So they knew that the eviction moratorium was in place, so they knew that they could stop paying rent, and they basically got an $8,000 gift. Okay, now the eviction moratorium was only supposed to apply to people who suffered, financial distress because of the COVID-19 pandemic, according to what the New York State people were saying, right? So this lady here and her family, they didn't even qualify for the eviction moratorium if their only issue was because, they stopped paying rent because of the bug problem. So you don't qualify for the eviction moratorium, so you shouldn't have been able to be protected by it. But unfortunately, they were. See what I mean right there? Basically, we have tenants who stopped paying rent even though they weren't facing financial distress from the pandemic and still getting the protections. Oh man, it's very frustrating article. It's part of the reason why I wouldn't want to invest in a place like New York State, even in a place like Buffalo, where the housing costs are much, much less than they are like down in New York City. It just, this kind of issue can be just, not worth it. So yeah, now this landlord's getting his name dragged through the mud. But let's continue. This is a business, Akhtar said in a brief interview. They're not paying. If there's a problem, then move. Good answer. Okay. Akhtar said he hired an exterminator for the property in November and made repairs to the foundation. He said the family is exaggerating the conditions and should pay their rent. Yeah, and I agree with him. Now, that's interesting right there. He said that he already did hire an exterminator to come in there. And, if the exterminator comes in there, sprays and, kills all of the bugs that it can see, it doesn't matter if these people are so dirty and so nasty and so disgusting that the bugs have tons of places to hide. They're up in there, they're everywhere. And then these people, they don't clean up their trash. I mean, I had this happen to me. That's why I know. I had one of my units in my fourplex where the tenants were absolutely disgusting. I had beautifully remodeled the place before they moved in, and then I ended up having to spend like almost $4,000 repairing it after they moved out because they just had garbage everywhere, and the place was overrun with roaches. And until they actually left, I wasn't able to actually get those roaches killed. And I apologize to my other tenants because they had to deal with the roaches coming through them from the other unit. So goodness, I mean, I have to sympathize with the landlord in this situation. I don't think that this story is 100% real.